Hey guys, back with another video. I want to show you 3 passages in the Bible that prove God hears your prayers, okay? And He hears your thoughts. And stick around to the end because the third one is just amazing and not many people talk about it. And it's in the Bible, in the book of Revelations. So stick around. So I want to show you first Jeremiah chapter 1. And it says that before God created Jeremiah, okay, He knew him. And it's interesting because that means that before God created Jeremiah, He already had thoughts for him. It's the same thing with you. God had thoughts about you before you were born. And then, of course, during your lifetime, God has so much more thoughts for you. And who knows, maybe God has thoughts even more after your lifetime. God just continues to have thoughts for you. So it's interesting. So God created your purpose. He already had everything planned out. He created you to match that purpose. So that shows that God indeed has a plan for you. He has thoughts before you were born and then even during your lifetime. So it's interesting. And I love this passage, Acts chapter 17, verse 28. So it says, "In Him we live, move, and exist, and have our being." But it's interesting because just a passage later, it says that God created boundaries for everyone's existence. So that means that, for example, if you were born in 1994, or 1980 or whatever, God already predestined when or in which timeline you should be born. So everything is thought out. The place that you were born, the time in, so whatever it is was already planned out. God had thoughts for you, okay? So just let that sink in and really get that understanding. I know we get this human limited perspective or understanding that maybe God doesn't hear me because there's billions of people on earth, right? But the book of Isaiah also says in chapter 55 that God's ways are so much higher than your ways and His thoughts are so much higher than our thoughts. So that's why it's important to read God's word to understand who He is and how much He cares about you. And what helps me when I read the Bible is John chapter 3:16, right? For God so loved the world. So you can replace the world with your name. So God so loved Erica that He gave His only begotten Son to save Erica, right? So you can do that, and that will help personalize everything for you. So that was one. Number 2 is Psalms chapter 139, verse 2. Okay, it says that God hears your thoughts from afar. Okay, so even when you're doing some self-talk or you're just talking to yourself in the car or at work and not even realizing that God hears that. Even when you're not praying, just talking to yourself in the shower or talking to yourself in the car, whatever it is, God hears that. You know, and that's the really cool thing. So that just shows that when you pray, just imagine how much more God is going to pay attention to that, right? So it's really cool. And in verse 11 of Psalms chapter 139, it says, even if you try to hide yourself in darkness, okay? Even when you're depressed, even when you're, whatever it is, trying to run away from God, darkness is the same thing as light. So God knows where you are, okay? He understands you from afar. And He still hears you no matter what. Even if you try to run away, God sees exactly where you're at. He knows when you're standing up, when you're sitting down. And my favorite part, guys, is verse 17 and 18. It says that the thoughts that God has for me outnumbers the grain of sand on the seashore. And guys, there's a lot of sand on the seashore. Just imagine if you go to the beach, many of you have, when you just sink your feet into the fine grain of sand and it's really soft. But just imagine how much sand is actually inside of the ocean, like miles deep in the ocean. There's canyons and there's caves deep inside the ocean. Just imagine, there's so much. Just everywhere, like Pacific Ocean, Atlantic Ocean, there's deep inside, there's all types of sand in there. But no one thinks about that. But that's true. Also, the Sahara Desert. And I'm going to put this clip right here to show you the Sahara Desert, where you find grain of sand that look like floating, dancing, or hovering. You know, they're kind of hovering. There are mountains made out of sand. I was actually reading Jeremiah chapter 29, verse 11, where it says, "For I know the plans that I have for you, declares the Lord." And I think I was reading the New American Standard Bible. There was a couple of translations I was reading, but it said that, "For I know the plans that I have for you, declares the Lord." Okay, plans for welfare and for good, not to harm you. But it's interesting because I was reading the King James version at one time, and I was surprised to see that the translation was different, and it said, "For I know the thoughts that I have for you." Isn't that interesting how it's more personal and intimate now? So it's not just the plans, it's not just like a list of things that God has for you. Now it's the thoughts. God has the thoughts for you. So isn't that just wonderful, just to know that God has thoughts to make sure that you have everything taken care of for you? So I think it's really interesting. But now to the final one, I want to show you guys this, because in Revelations chapter 20, talking about the great white judgment, right? The judgment day, pretty much. And it says that the books were opened. Okay, so what are the books? Well, if you go to Psalms chapter 139, it says that every day of my life was written in your books. Okay, even before you were born, God had already written everything in your books. Now, I know that you might think, well, then how come if someone sins or goes to hell or something, how come God created them even though He knew they was going to go to hell? Well, the thing is, God knew their choices before they were born. You see, so it's all about the free will. But anyways, on Judgment Day, in Revelations chapter 20, verse 11, it says the books were opened. Okay, and in those books were everything like that you said. Okay, your words, your actions, and your thoughts. Everything that you ever said was written in the book, and then God's gonna judge everyone according to those books, right? According to your actions and everything. Now, this is what I want to show you. Don't take this the wrong way, but I think it's gonna help you, okay? Because not many people see this. Not many people get this idea. So if you think that God does not hear you, or you're trying to seek Him and you just feel like He's not listening to you, or whatever it is, or He doesn't know where you're at, just understand, if that's true, then there would not be a judgment day, because then God wouldn't know anything about you. You see what I mean? God would not know your thoughts. God would not know when you're looking at a woman with lust. He wouldn't know when you have anger in your heart. He wouldn't know when you have jealousy in your heart and you don't tell anyone, but you have that feeling and you give into it, right? Because then there wouldn't be a judgment day if God doesn't know your thoughts. So the devil lies. He tells you that God does not hear your thoughts. He tells you that God's not listening to you, or He's not going to come through for you. That's a lie from the devil. Don't believe that, okay? Because if the devil was right, then there would not be a judgment day. Like I know I said this all over again, but still, just let that encourage you guys. God hears you. Everything that you're going through, all your struggles and everything, it's all written in the book, and God's going to take care of you. So I just hope that this video helps you. And thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, comment, so that way more people can see this video to understand that God does hear your prayers, okay? There is a judgment day coming, and God knows your thoughts. He knows your intent, everything. Even the intent of your heart, guys. He knows everything about you. So let this video encourage you, and please put in the comment, what do you think about this? So thank you so much, guys, for watching, and I'll be making a new video again soon. Thank you so much.